The harsh glare of the fluorescent lights inside Cedar Hills Academy's auditorium felt almost blinding, bouncing off polished brass railings and marble floors that likely cost more than the first home I ever bought. I paused at the doorway, tugging at the sleeves of my navy blazer, the one I'd picked up from Macy's just last month, convincing myself it looked respectable enough for an evening like this. At the check-in stand, a young usher with a tablet and a rehearsed smile glanced up at me, then back down at her screen. "Good evening, sir. Are you attending the Academic Excellence Awards?" "Yes," I replied. "My granddaughter, Emma Richardson, is being recognized." Her fingers tapped across the glass. "And your name?" "Robert Mitchell." She scrolled, her pleasant expression tightening by a fraction. "I'm sorry, Mr. Mitchell. The family section is reserved for parents and primary guardians. We do have general seating available toward the back." I leaned slightly to look past her into the auditorium. The first 10 rows displayed small brass plaques that read reserved family seating. I counted more than a few empty chairs. Plenty, actually. "I'm her grandfather," I said quietly. "I understand, sir. It fills up quickly. You'll still have a clear view from the rear." Before I could answer, my daughter stepped beside me. Jennifer, 42, poised, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost what I once earned in a month. Her hand rested on my arm, soft but unyielding. "Dad, it's okay. Come on, I'll take you to your seat." She steered me down the aisle, her heels striking sharply against the glossy floor. As we moved, I noticed her quick glance toward a cluster gathered near the front, men in sleek designer suits, women in elegant cocktail dresses, each holding wine glasses from the pre-ceremony reception. I clearly hadn't been invited to. "Jennifer," I murmured, "there are open seats up there. It's assigned seating," she said under her breath. "Dad, please don't make a scene. Don't make a scene." The words settled heavily in my chest. I had spent 43 years working as a diesel mechanic, 43 years sliding beneath trucks, grease embedded in my skin no matter how hard I scrubbed, coming home reeking of motor oil and sweat. I'd paid for Jennifer's college state school, sure, but 4 full years all the same. I'd helped her with the down payment on her first house. And 3 years earlier, when David's real estate development firm started collapsing under bad investments, when they admitted they couldn't keep up with Emma's tuition at Cedar Hills Academy, I stepped in without hesitation. I wrote a check for $45,000, 3 full years paid in advance at $15,000 per year for a school with a waiting list that stretched out for years. I drained nearly half of my retirement savings to make sure my granddaughter wouldn't have to leave, because Jennifer had asked me to, because Emma loved that place, because that's what families do for each other. I took my seat in the last row. The ceremony began, and I watched Emma cross the stage to receive her Mathematics Achievement Award. From where I sat, her small figure in a white dress looked distant, almost fragile beneath the bright stage lights. I clapped as hard as I could, though I doubted she could hear me over the thunderous applause rising from the families seated in the front rows. Afterward, everyone filtered into the adjoining hall for the reception. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead. Tables draped in crisp white linens displayed towering floral arrangements. Servers wove through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne and delicate hors d'oeuvres. I spotted Jennifer standing with David and another couple I didn't recognize. The man's Rolex gleamed every time he moved his wrist. His wife wore diamonds that sparkled against her throat. "Jennifer," I said as I approached. She turned, and for a split second something flickered across her face, unease, maybe even embarrassment. "Dad, this is Marcus and Claire Petton. Their son is in Emma's class." "Marcus, Claire, this is Robert." She hesitated almost imperceptibly. "Just Robert. Nice to meet you," I said, offering my hand. Marcus shook it quickly, his grip polite but fleeting. "Are you with the school administration?" "No, I'm Jennifer's." "Robert does consulting," Jennifer cut in smoothly, her tone bright but strained. "He's semi-retired now." I looked at her. "Consulting? In what industry?" Marcus asked. Jennifer's fingers settled on my arm again, that same controlled pressure. "Transportation logistics," she answered for me. "It's fairly technical." Then she forced a smile. "Dad, I think Emma's been looking for you. Why don't you go find her?" She was already guiding me away before I could finish my sentence. Once we were out of earshot, I stopped walking. Transportation logistics. Dad, please. I'm a diesel mechanic, I said quietly. I've been a diesel mechanic since I was 19. These people don't need to know that. The sentence hit harder than I expected. These people don't need to know that. What's wrong with being a mechanic? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just. She lowered her voice, frustration creeping in. Dad, this is a different world. David is trying to rebuild his company. We need connections. We need people to see us a certain way. And what way is that? Not as the daughter of a mechanic. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean, Jennifer? She scanned the room quickly, making sure no one was close enough to overhear. You don't understand the kind of pressure we're under. This school, these families, they're our network. Emma's future depends on the relationships she forms here. David's business depends on the image we project. We can't afford to look ordinary. Ordinary. Somehow I had been reduced from father to ordinary. I found Emma near the dessert table, proudly holding her award certificate against her chest. 12 years old, her mother's dark hair framing a face lit by my own blue eyes. Grandpa. She threw her arms around me, and in that embrace the noise, the chandeliers, the sharp words, all of it faded. Did you see? I got the highest score in my whole grade. I saw, sweetheart. I couldn't be prouder. Mom told me you paid for me to go here. Thank you. You're worth every penny. She hesitated, then added, Jenny Patterson asked if you're Mom's dad. I said yes. She said her dad went to Yale and he's a lawyer. What do you do, Grandpa? I looked into her open, curious face, waiting without judgment. I fix trucks, I said. The big ones, the kind that haul things all over the country. Her eyes widened. That sounds awesome. Do you get to drive them? Sometimes. Mostly I make sure they don't break down. That's important, she said seriously. If trucks stopped working, how would anything get to the stores? Exactly right. Jennifer reappeared, her expression tight behind a polished smile. Emma, go thank your teachers. We're leaving soon. Emma hurried off, her certificate clutched proudly in her hands. Jennifer faced me. Did you tell her you're a mechanic? She asked what I did. Dad, I've been telling people you work in transportation consulting. Could you please just stick with that? That night I drove home in my 15-year-old Ford F-150, the truck I'd serviced myself since the day I bought it. The one that ran smoother than most brand new models, because I knew every bolt, every hose, every wire under its hood. As the highway lights passed overhead, I replayed the evening in my mind. The hesitation in Jennifer's voice when she introduced me. The way she couldn't quite bring herself to say father. The empty seats in the reserved family rows. And I thought about $45,000. The next morning, I called my bank and asked for Margaret Henderson, the financial advisor who'd handled my accounts for 2 decades. Robert, it's nice to hear from you. What can I help you with? That education fund I arranged for Emma, the one covering her tuition automatically. I'd like to make some adjustments. All right, what sort of adjustments? I want to open a new 529 plan in Emma's name alone, transfer whatever remains from the current setup into that account, and cancel the automatic tuition payments to Cedar Hills Academy. There was a brief silence on the other end. That's a considerable change. May I ask what prompted it? Let's just say I want the money available when Emma truly needs it. College, graduate school, whatever path she chooses. I want oversight of how it's spent. And as for this year's tuition, stop the payments. Immediately. Robert, the school will be notified if a payment doesn't go through. I understand. I ended the call and remained seated at my kitchen table, the same old Formica table where I'd eaten breakfast for 30 years, where Jennifer once spread out her homework at the very age Emma is now. The house was silent. It had been that way since Martha passed 5 years earlier. At times the quiet pressed in on me, but at least it was genuine. The walls didn't pretend to be anything other than what they were. 6 weeks later, my phone rang. Jennifer. Dad, we've got a problem. What kind of problem? The school called. They said the tuition payment for the new term didn't go through. They said the account was closed. That's right. There was a long pause. What do you mean, that's right? I mean, I closed it, Jennifer. I canceled the automatic payments. Why would you do that? Because I'm done being your embarrassment. I'm done being introduced as Robert to people who apparently don't need to know I'm a mechanic. That's not why, she started, then stopped. I paid $45,000 for Emma's education, because you asked me to. Because family helps family. But I'm not going to keep writing checks just to sit hidden in the back row of my own granddaughter's life. You're being unreasonable. I never said you embarrassed me. You told your friends I'm a consultant. You couldn't even say I'm your father. That's not fair. You don't understand the position we're in. Then help me understand it. And she did. It all spilled out. The real estate crash that had nearly taken David's company under. The loans they were still struggling to repay. The gamble they'd made assuming David would secure a massive development deal through one of the Cedar Hills families. The leased BMW parked in their driveway to project success. The country club membership they couldn't afford to cancel. The house mortgage to its limit. We're barely staying afloat, Dad. If anyone finds out how bad it really is, David will never land the contracts he needs. We have to keep up appearances. At what cost? At whatever cost it takes. This is about Emma's future. It's about our family's future. And what about me? I asked quietly. Do I count as part of that family? Of course you do. Then why don't I make the list? She had no answer for that. I moved the remaining money into a protected account in Emma's name, I said. It'll be there when she needs it. College, graduate school, whatever path she chooses. But I'm not paying for appearances anymore. I'm not financing a version of you that's ashamed of me. Dad, wait. I ended the call. The next 3 months were quiet, in a way that felt heavier than silence. Jennifer didn't reach out. I didn't either. Through my brother, I heard updates I wasn't meant to hear, that Emma had been withdrawn from Cedar Hills halfway through the year and enrolled in the local public middle school, that David had lost the development contract they were counting on, that the leased BMW had been returned and replaced with a used Honda. More than once, I picked up the phone. More than once, I almost dialed. Fix it, I told myself. That's what fathers do. We repair what's broken. But some fractures need time. Some things have to sit in pieces before they can be rebuilt the right way. In the end, it wasn't Jennifer who called. It was Emma. She showed up at my house one gray Saturday afternoon in November. Jennifer's car idled in my driveway, but she stayed behind the wheel, not coming to the door. Grandpa, Emma, come in, sweetheart. She settled at the kitchen table, the same place her mother used to spread out her school books years ago. Somehow she seemed older than she had 3 months earlier. Why did you stop paying for my school? I had known the question would come. I'd rehearsed explanations in my head. But sitting across from her, seeing Martha's softness reflected in her eyes, every carefully prepared sentence slipped away. Because sometimes the cost of something isn't just money, I said slowly. Sometimes you pay with parts of who you are, and I was giving up too much of myself. She frowned slightly. I don't get it. Your mom was embarrassed by what I did, and I got tired of acting like honest work was something to hide. She told me you're a mechanic, that you fix big trucks. Did that upset you? She shook her head immediately. No, I think it's awesome. We had a career day at my new school. Everyone's parents came. Doctors, lawyers. One girl's mom is a dentist, but nobody had a grandpa who keeps trucks running. I told my teacher about you. She said trucks are the backbone of America's economy. She's right. I miss Cedar Hills, Emma admitted. My friends were there, but I like my new school too. The kids are different. She hesitated, searching for the right words. They're more normal, she finally said. Like me. You've always been normal, Emma. Not at Cedar Hills. There. I was always acting like we had more money than we really did. Acting like Dad's business was amazing. Mom wouldn't let me invite friends over because she said our house wasn't nice enough. Something inside my chest splintered. Your house is beautiful. It's not as big as theirs. It doesn't have a pool, or a movie room, or a tennis court. Those things don't make a home. That's what I told her, but she got upset. We sat quietly for a minute. Then Emma reached into her backpack and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. We had to write an essay in English about someone we admire. I wrote mine about you. My teacher said it was one of the best in the class. Do you want to read it? She placed it in my hands. The title read, My Grandpa, the Backbone of America. I started reading. She wrote about how I'd worked since I was 19, how I'd paid for her mom's college education, how I'd covered her tuition, even though I didn't have endless money. She described visiting my garage when she was little, how I'd lifted her up so she could see under the hood, how I'd shown her how to check the oil, how I'd told her that any job worth doing deserved your full effort. She wrote that I was the hardest working person she knew. When she grew up, she hoped she would have my kind of integrity. The words blurred before I could reach the end. I had to stop. Grandpa, are you okay? I cleared my throat. I'm better than okay, sweetheart. This might be the finest thing anyone's ever written about me. Really, really. Mom cried when she read it. I looked up. She did? Emma nodded. Yeah. Then she said we needed to come see you. I walked Emma back outside to the driveway. Jennifer was still in the car. When she rolled down the window, I could see her eyes were swollen and red. Dad. Jennifer. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I got lost trying to repair everything. Our finances, our image, all of it. I was so focused on how things looked that I forgot what actually mattered. Her voice shook. When Emma wrote that essay, it hit me. I realized I was teaching her to be ashamed of the best man I know. I said nothing. You're not perfect, she went on, tears spilling freely now. But you're genuine. You've lived your whole life honestly. You've worked with your hands, and there's pride in that. There's dignity in that. I can't believe I forgot. I opened the door wider. Come inside. Both of you. We gathered around the kitchen table, and for the first time in a long while we actually talked. Not about appearances. Not about who knew who. We talked about fear. Jennifer admitted how much pressure they'd been under. How panic had shaped so many of her choices. I told her what it felt like to be edited out of her life, to stand in the background like something that needed hiding. Emma sat between us, quiet but listening. I think she understood more than either of us expected. The money I put aside is still there, I said. It's for Emma, for college, for whatever road she chooses, but I won't pay for pretending. I won't pay for shame. I don't want you to, Jennifer said quickly. I don't want any of that anymore. It almost cost me you. It almost cost Emma the chance to really know her grandfather. So what happens now? I asked. She drew in a steady breath. David's scaling back. Smaller projects. Real ones we can actually handle. We're putting the house on the market and moving somewhere we can truly afford. No more pretending to be something we're not. She glanced at Emma. And she's doing well at her new school. She's made real friends. She joined the robotics club. Did you know she's got a knack for engineering? I looked at my granddaughter. Is that so? She nodded, suddenly bashful. I like building stuff, taking it apart and putting it back together. Sounds familiar, Jennifer said softly. In the months that followed, change came slowly, but it came. Jennifer and David sold the oversized house and moved into something smaller, something that felt lived in instead of staged. David accepted a stable position with a construction company while rebuilding his business the right way, one manageable project at a time, and Jennifer stopped measuring her worth by other people's opinions. Emma started coming by every other Saturday after that. I taught her how engines breathe, how fuel and spark turn into motion. I showed her how to change her own oil, how to check tire pressure properly, and how to listen closely enough to hear what an engine is trying to say when something isn't right. She picked it up fast, hands steady, instincts sharp, questions firing one after another. One mild Saturday in the spring, she was beside me under the hood of my truck, helping swap out a worn alternator, when she paused and asked, "Grandpa, do you think I could become a mechanic?" "You can become anything you set your mind to," I told her. "But if you chose to be a mechanic, you'd be one hell of a good one." She smiled, then grew thoughtful. "Mom thinks I should look at engineering school someday. She says I could design engines instead of just repairing them." "What do you want?" She went quiet, her fingers still resting on the wrench. "I think I want to understand how everything works, from the first drawing to the last bolt tightened. The whole thing. Is that strange?" I chuckled. That might be the smartest thing I've heard in a long time. That evening, Jennifer pulled into the driveway to pick her up. She stepped into the garage and looked around slowly at the rows of tools I'd gathered over 40 years, at the workbench I'd built with my own hands, at the neatly labeled parts lining the shelves. I used to play out here when I was little, she said softly. Do you remember? I do. You'd let me pass you tools. You made sure I knew their names. Socket wrench, torque wrench, Allen key. You always had a sharp memory. She gave a small, regretful smile. I'd forgotten that. I'd forgotten a lot. Then she turned toward me. Thank you, Dad. For what? For not letting me forget forever. For caring enough to stop me. Before I taught Emma that shame was more important than truth. You're my daughter. That's what fathers do. She hugged me then, and I smelled her shampoo, the same brand she'd used since high school. For a moment, she was 10 years old again, standing in the same garage asking me to explain how a carburetor worked. I love you, Dad. I love you too, kiddo. That at night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and Emma's essay in my hands. I'd already read it a dozen times. Still, I read it again. She ended with a sentence that wouldn't let me go. My grandpa taught me there's no shame in honest work, only in dishonest living. I am 12 years old, and she understood something. It took her mother 42 years to grasp. I thought about the ceremony at Cedar Hills, sitting in the back row, being introduced as Robert instead of Dad. I remembered the empty seats in the family section, the ones I wasn't allowed to fill. It hurt, more than I'd admitted to myself. But that pain led us here, to Emma standing in my garage, learning to read an engine the way some kids read novels, to Jennifer slowly remembering who she was and who we were, to honest conversations around a scratched Formica table, instead of forced smiles under chandeliers. The fluorescent lights at that academy were too bright, too artificial. Here in my small house with worn furniture and walls that have seen real life, the light feels right. Here I don't have to pretend to be in transportation, or logistics, or consulting, or any other polished version of the truth. Here I can be what I've always been. A diesel mechanic, a father, a grandfather. And that is enough. It always was. I just had to help my daughter remember. Outside, a truck passed on the highway, engine running smooth and steady. Somewhere, a mechanic did their job right. Somewhere, someone is getting home safely because every bolt was tightened, every line checked, every part aligned. There's honor in that. There's dignity in keeping the world moving, one engine at a time. Emma understands that now. Jennifer is beginning to. And I've learned something too. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is refusing to participate in their self-deception. Sometimes love means drawing a line and saying this far, no further. I paid $45,000 for Emma's education. But the lesson about honest work and real worth, that one didn't cost a cent, and it was worth everything. If this story meant something to you, consider subscribing to A Father's Wrath and turning on the notification bell. Every week we share powerful true stories about integrity, family, redemption, and the courage to stand firm when it matters most. Leave a comment below. What lesson did someone in your life teach you that changed everything? Your story might remind someone else what truly matters. Thank you for reading. Stay honest, stay steady, and never underestimate the power of doing things the right way.